When I was an adolescent, if I got quite upset about something, it was even money that some nearby grup would drawl, "It's not the end of the world." This was never comforting, despite being always true. Ironically, I chose the title of this series, How to Enjoy the End of the World, to make somewhat the same point, but with this difference. Not only is it not the actual end of the world, but the situation we do face is one we can have some positive feelings about, and even, in some sense, look forward to. This series is about the collapse of modern, which is to say, industrial civilization. A civilization built very recently in historical terms, beginning in the late 1700s with the Industrial Revolution in Britain and Europe, then in North America, and finally, still within living memory, reaching the entire globe, in parallel with a dramatic rise in technology, in energy use, and in institutional, social, and economic complexity. When I undertook to study the trajectory of modern civilization deeply, nearly 20 years ago, I did not imagine that I would ever wish to give presentations or make videos about it. I was a college math teacher, and content to be so. However, the things I learned motivated me to become active in the Green Party, and when I was asked to give a presentation to the Greens at Virginia Tech, I decided to see if I could communicate, in broad strokes, some of the conclusions I had already formed. That talk was well received, and I was invited back to give a second talk on the same issues early in 2019, which I titled, How to Enjoy the End of the World. The video of that presentation, poor as it was, became unexpectedly popular on YouTube, and I found myself fielding questions and responding to criticism on a near constant basis ever since. There have also been an avalanche of requests to give further talks, which would have happened but for the COVID pandemic. This confirmed a point I made at the beginning of that talk in 2019, that if something seemingly bad is happening, people will be happier the better they can understand it. It also showed that a great many people, especially young people, are increasingly anxious and sometimes even despondent over what they perceive to be a very bleak future for themselves and their generation. This video series, then, will unpack the previous presentations into more accessible and digestible parcels, filling in some details and with important updates, and will also present for the first time the material that was originally intended to go into subsequent presentations. So, to return to our topic, what exactly is meant by the collapse of industrial civilization? There have been 90 or so notable civilizations in known human history, and all but one of them exists no longer, except in history books. What happened to them? Many were absorbed or conquered by more powerful civilizations. The rest collapsed. A list of the best-known examples of collapsed civilizations would include the fall of the Western Roman Empire, the Bronze Age collapse, and the collapse of the Mayan civilization, but there are many dozens of others. This does not mean that the people who made up these civilizations vanished. In most cases, the people, their language, and many of their cultural norms and traditions continued, but the institutional, social, and economic structures that together made up their civilizations fell apart. The trading arrangements that permitted goods to be exchanged through many hands and across great distances ceased to work, lowering living standards and forcing people to meet their needs out of local resources. The technologies that were made possible by the availability of abundant and diverse goods and materials could no longer be used. The governing institutions, including laws, bureaucrats, and militaries that relied on common prosperity for their legitimacy and for their tax base, were abandoned. These effects are common to every historical instance of a civilization undergoing a complexity collapse. This series addresses the collapse of our own civilization. This is not a hypothetical discussion. As we will see, collapse is already well underway, and it is ultimately unavoidable, no matter what we do. We will see that energy and complexity are the key issues, and we will devote considerable attention to understanding them as clearly as possible. We will examine the characteristic features of our decline, from energy depletion and environmental degradation, including climate disaster, to economic crises, social stresses, and political upheavals. Just as importantly, we will explore the many reasons collapse should be understood as a natural and a necessary phenomenon, one of the many cycles of life itself, and how this understanding can enable a vision of our individual and our shared futures that is both reassuring and enabling. Could the world really end? Of course. Collision with a big enough asteroid, the eruption of a big enough caldera, or, what is sadly much more likely, a general exchange of nuclear weapons could end everything relevant to human life suddenly and finally. But that's not what this series is about. This series is about the ongoing complexity collapse of global industrial civilization, and how, faced with the realization that this is our situation, we can ourselves cultivate resilience and hope, live full lives, and lay the best possible foundations for renewal. As always, thank you for watching.